Okay, so I got two like quick little videos here. I want to try and like give to the devs. There's Yogi I'm going to send this to, and then like one other one for sure. I don't know who all needs to see this and who's working on like the weapons and the vehicles team and stuff like right now. I think Yogi's working on it. I'm not 100% sure, but there's a couple like critical issues I want to like get to your guys' attention. Hopefully they can be addressed. I'll try and make this as short as possible and take up as little time as possible. I know you guys are busy. Figured I'd just do it in this format because I think it's easier than trying to make like a forum post or something and having it lost in the noise. So the first one, the Ion, and then some weapon stuff that you guys have missed. I mean, maybe I don't think some of this stuff is intentional. I really do think some of it was you were going through, making changes, and then you got sidetracked and pulled onto something else and forgot to come back and touch it up. I myself am a game dev, obviously not for CIG, otherwise I'd just talk to you directly, or however it works there. I would have channels to talk to you. But, you know, I've done the same thing myself several times. But, again, I got to keep this short. So, like, my first question is, why do you guys hate the Ion so much? I mean, this thing is terrible. I mean, look at this thing's damage. And I'm basically doing a feedback thing and sending this to you, so I'm not able to ask questions and have a back and forth dialogue, so I can only speculate. But looking at this thing, I mean, it's been this way for a long time. I mean, this is even worse than what we have in live. But you guys have treated this thing like the redheaded stepchild. The Inferno is fine. It's right where it should be in terms of damage and stats. It's got the 4K range. It's got the proper damage as far as size 7s go, and you can see here and here, but not this one. And I know there's a charge mechanic coming, but that's like, even with that, even with the charge mechanic, this is your DPS with the charge mechanic for the I think it's either burst or sustained. I don't remember. I haven't mathed it out in front of me. But I know that the regular fire mode is 1,250, which is even less. I mean, this thing is supposed to be a size 7 weapon. It is supposed to be an anti-capital fighter and a threat to large ships, and this is just not that. I mean, it's not going to function in its role if it can't even hurt a little ship. And it's more than just raw damage, because you do have a 6K alpha here with a charge shot, but having raw damage while being nice and all is only half of the equation. It also needs DPS, and if these other weapons have 2-3 times the DPS, I mean, look at this for example. A size 5 technically has more damage than this thing does, and that's way too low. I know that this is a fighter, it's a one-person thing, it's problematic, blah blah blah, or whatever you guys could say about it. I would counter with, but we also have single seat or one-person piloted vehicles that put out just as much damage as this, or even more, and with even greater shielding. So we've got the Constellation, for example. That thing, if you run all cannons on it, you can see what we have for sustained and burst for cannons. I mean, this even outdoes an Inferno. So why can't the Ion have just as much damage as the Inferno does? And keep in mind, the Inferno is a projectile weapon. It has bleed through damage. The Ion doesn't. So there's shields. I mean, they recharge, and there's different facings. And seeing as there's no bleed through damage, this thing needs to have as much, if not more, damage than the projectile weapon things in order to be as effective, and you're giving it less. I gotta ask why. I mean, maybe you're thinking, yeah, those other ships, they do more damage, but they're larger, and I would counter with, yes, but they have multiple weapons. This only has one. And it's bespoke and built into the frame, and it can't be changed. So, I mean, it needs to have the one weapon, and it needs to perform well and do its duty. Or maybe you'd counter with, yeah, but in case of the Connies and the Drakes, they have worse agility. And I would say, yes, and they should, because they're larger ships. In fact, if you're worried about this thing being too effective against fighters, first of all, you've already done the charge mechanic. That is really good. That helps a lot. I mean, we need to tweak the damage numbers to get the alpha and everything else like that. That needs to go up. Also, why is this thing's range so short? Like, the lifetime needs to be 4 seconds, so it has a 4K range, like literally every other size 7 gun, including the Infernos. So that needs to go up. And the charge time needs to go down to 1.5 seconds. I know the 0.5 is not that big of a deal, but it's actually huge in DPS land, and I'll explain that later. But having the charge mechanic in there, that's a great balancing factor. Taking away the auto aim or the aim assist, that's a great balancing factor. You've already done that in there. That helps that a lot. But that being said, another thing that I would do if I was you, and if I was in your position that you haven't done, is these, like, I hate that they're called fighters, I'm doing air quotes here, because they're not. They're basically anti-capital weapons platforms. They are, like, super heavy attack craft. They are more akin to a... It's really weird, because they are fighter shaped, they're single pilot, but they're in an awkward spot. And you want them to be susceptible to fighters, even other heavy fighters. I completely agree. The problem is, your agility for these things is way too high. I mean, look at the thrusters on that, for example. The thrust on that is bonkers. This thing has more agility, or I guess as much agility, as the Vanguard does, when you don't want this thing to be fighting against fighters. So I know most of this stuff may be placeholder at the moment with your archetype tuning and stuff, but I would go as far as to say these things need to have the worst flight performance of anything called a fighter, period, approaching that of something an entire class lower than it. So if it was me, I would kind of axe their agility to probably somewhere in between this thing and where it is now. So maybe like meet in the middle there. So like this would be 90 as opposed to this. Why does it keep defaulting back to that? It's really annoying. So that would be, so like this is 60, 30, 30. This thing should be like 90, 32, 35 or something like that. You know, that's what I would do for this thing, because like I said, you want it to be susceptible against fighters, and anything that this thing is intended to attack, this thing's stats, even with those lower numbers, will still allow it to massively outturn and outperform everything else that it's supposed to be going against in terms of flight performance. It doesn't need regular heavy fighter agility. That's way too much. I mean, maybe keeping the thruster ability so it can like get in and out quickly and break contact or close distance, that's fine, but the agility and the sustained turning needs to go way down, because you want this thing to lose against fighters. It can't be too powerful. I completely agree with you, but at the end of the day, it's intended to attack large ships. It must have higher DPS, way higher than this, way higher alpha. And I'll throw those numbers up there on screen. I mean, I would not go any lower than that, and there's only so many ways that you can play with things in terms of like rate of fire and alpha and stuff like that within a certain set range, and this is kind of where I've just really thought about it and said this is probably about as good as you're going to get. You can obviously go lower with the rate of fire, but then your alpha goes up, or you can go lower with the alpha, but then the rate of fire goes up, and you're in an awkward spot. But locking the majority of the damage that this thing does behind the charge mechanic, I think is spot on. I would do exactly the same, and the numbers I'm about to give you reflect that. In fact, you'll probably see them on screen here with me talking about it the whole time. So the charge time goes down to 1.5 seconds. The standard cyclical rate of fire for the regular non-charge mode goes up to 60. The full charge rate changes as well. I mean, your alphas change, your lifetime changes, your speed is... So this is something I'm not sure if you can do. I hope that with the charge mechanic, it really depends on like what you have available in your toolkit for tuning. I know everything is technically possible, but whether or not it's readily available right now or would require extra scripting and coding is a completely different thing. But I hope that you can tweak the speed and lifetime of a projectile based off of is it a charge shot or not. If you can, this is what I would do to help it out. And the standard, like, you know, fast mode, fire at 1,000 meters a second. In the charge shot mode, just to make it extra difficult to land hits against fighters, because all the other stuff we mentioned before, all that balanced stuff that you have in there right now, to make it harder to use the charge shot against fighters, that's fantastic. But I would make it even harder by lowering the charge speed down to 800. Because anything you're going to be shooting this thing at, you're either going to be closer to it, or it's going to be a larger target with less maneuvering. So having the lower shot at a higher velocity and the heavy, like, you know, fat, overcharged orb of plasma or energy or whatever flying at you at a lower velocity, it just feels right. So this is how I would tune the ship. Like I said, I would chop the agility to kind of like in between where it is now and where Akani is, and then I would just really tweak this thing's weapon status to where it is on par with or slightly better in some areas than even an Inferno, because, like I said, it has to shoot through those shields, and shields can recharge. Hull doesn't. So the Inferno can apply damage even through shields that sticks, whereas this thing can't. People can break contact, and they can just recharge their shields or present a new facing to you. I mean, this thing needs to, at minimum, have almost as much, if not slightly better. Now, the way I've configured it here, you can see that it's still technically not as high as the Inferno is in terms of burst DPS, and that's because even I was getting kind of weary with, I don't really want to give the charge shot too much damage, so I think that this right here is about perfect. But keep in mind, you're also going to be firing at, I mean, yeah, this is going to be devastating to a light fighter if it hits, it's dead. It's probably going to be devastating to a lot of, like, medium craft if it hits with size 2 shields, but most of your targets are going to have size 3 or size 4 shields anyway, or bigger, and they're going to have multiple of them, so a single facing is going to require multiple full charge hits to take down, and with that charge mechanic, while this damage is very high, it's spread out over a long period of time. So it kind of evens out. Oh, and also, you may not have the ability to do this via tuning, and I don't know how to say this. Depending on how your tools are set up, where I've got the different ammo counts, literally all you have to do is make the overcharge shot literally cost more energy, and you can, like, math it out. That's one of the reasons why I've got it at 2.5 times less shots for overcharged out of the same pool as a regular shot. So you'll see 20 there and you'll see 8 there. All you got to do is just, like, increase the amount of energy that it sucks from the weapon capacitor for an overcharge shot, and you can hit those numbers. You should be able to do that with your existing tuning. You shouldn't need any extra scripting. But I don't know. I can't see the code, and I can only see what Urkel and these people have provided. I would love to be able to just come on as, like, a consultant and work with you guys or crunch numbers for you in, like, the free time, because I just want to see the game in a better spot, and I can volunteer my time, or heck, I mean, if I can work remote, I would love to just come on temporarily and help you guys with this, because I can help you build a armor system. I can help you build a sensor and stealth system. We can, like, I mean, this isn't technically how I would do the weapons, and I kind of know why you're doing it this way, and, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I mean, I got so many things I could help you guys with. But, you know, this video is going to be too long, so I'm going to end this here. We're going to get to the next one, and that's going to be it for the feedback. Thanks. Just realized I forgot to mention the other weapons that are kind of wonky right now. So you'll notice here that the Strife Mass Driver still has a 5k speed and a 5.5k range. Don't think that's intentional. And honestly, you guys really ruined the DPS of these weapons right here. Like, why are these so low? It's because you changed the fire rate down to nothing, but you didn't increase the alpha. And then the other thing is, nothing else has higher than a, what is it, like an 1800 velocity. You don't really need a 3000 velocity. I mean, yeah, I guess you can keep it if you need to. But, I mean, personally, I don't know, I might go down to like 2600. Because it's going to create ratio issues with velocity and, you know, target agility. And it's already faster than everything else. So you've got your niche of being like your super high application weapons. And then the range, like, why is the range half of what it is for all of these other things? I think the range needs to go to up to probably 2K or 2.3 like everything else. This, though, needs to come down. I mean, that's the exception there. And then it's the same for all the sledges and the singes, and I mean they're all broken like this. And then the CF788 cannon, which is right here. This one also still has, like, its speed is lower, which is fine, but it still has that crazy 6.5 kilometer range. Also, this thing only has 100 rounds of ammo, and this damage and this DPS compared to all other size 4 weapons, I mean, this is abysmal. I mean, I would personally double this alpha. All the other stats can stay the same, obviously, except for the range. I would probably lower that. Does this thing still have the crazy splash damage that it used to have? I mean, I'm kind of hoping it does, but even still, like, it's just not very good. It's not going to be useful. People are not going to use this thing. Unless, of course, you leave the range in there, in which case, I mean, people might use it as a meme weapon just because the range is so crazy. The scatterguns, I mean, this is still like 2.3/318 tuning on all of the scatterguns. I'm not really sure if you guys are going to adjust that at all or fix that. I think you did on some of the other ones. It just haven't done it on these for whatever reason. And then, well, only, yeah, see, like, you adjusted them for these, and some of the size 1s, I believe. Yeah, no, they're all adjusted except for the size 4s. A lot of the size 4 weapons are wonky. And then that also begs the question, are we ever going to get a size 4 distortion cannon or distortion repeater? I really hope so. And size 5 too, like they both need it. 4 and 5 both need distortion cannons and repeaters. That should be it, other than when are we going to get rockets back? Like, you know, we were supposed to have the size 3 Stormbreaker bombs on the Gladiator, and rockets are supposed to be on things like the... Well, I mean, they used to be in the store once upon a time forever ago, but then you got rid of them. I really wish you guys would bring back the rockets. And obviously, this needs to be fixed and changed. I mean, they badly need more damage, more velocity. The convergence thing, what do they call, aim assist convergence on them, so they can actually, like, hit a target instead of flying to the left and to the right of the target. But yeah, no, I mean, that's pretty much it. So on to the second part of the video.